Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Curtis, and today I want to do a video about what I call the state of Sisters, in which I talk about season 9, how it's going, and how I'm feeling about it. And I do want to talk to you all to see how you all feel about it as well. All right, so this season started off really strong, in my opinion. So, of course, we had a situation with Andy, Zach, Gary, Hudson, and then we end up finding out that there are blackouts happening throughout the city, which isn't really good because Fatima and Karen, they are trying to get to the hospital. And of course, we need the hospital to be functioning as well as possible so that way that Karen can have a safe delivery. We also saw the aftermath of Sabrina catching Rich and Penelope in the act. Rich is like, well, you know what? We did not actually do anything. We were getting ready to, but we did not do anything. And we saw Penelope basically showing off, like, basically, I could take your man whenever I want because you don't know what you're doing. And so it appeared as if it was going to be a lot of drama between them. But as the season has gone along, we have seen that nothing is really happening, in my opinion. And one of the biggest reasons why nothing is happening is because there really isn't much time that has gone by in these episodes that have come on. And so, if I recall correctly, the first 3 episodes happened within one day, right? And then episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, those all happened within the same day as well, right? And so, in our opinions, from like the outside looking in from the viewership, we look at it as like, okay, this stuff is happening, but what else is going to happen? Like, how long are we going to dwell on this? But the reason why it appears like this stuff is just lingering on and it's lasting so long is because it's all happening within a couple of days. And because all of this is happening within a short time period, only like a couple of days, Tyler has to include filler. And that's where we get to Maurice and we get to Paige. And listen, I know that the people like Maurice. I think Maurice is quite funny. But the problem with Maurice is that he does not add anything to the storyline, at least when it comes to this season. So whenever I see Maurice and I see Paige, I already know that it's going to be filler. I already know that they are brought in basically to be like the comedic relief. Like basically, there's a lot of stuff happening on the show that's a little deep, especially when it comes to Karen and Zach. So let's just throw in Maurice. Let's just throw in Paige. But like I said, it's just filler. So whenever I see it, I'm like, oh, okay. Like if I'm writing down my notes, like if I'm typing my notes for a review, once I see them, I actually stop typing because I know that it's not going to be anything that's going to actually help the story go along. I know it's just going to be them talking just to add some funniness to the show, but it's not anything that's going to help the show move forward. And while I'm talking about Maurice and Paige, I want to talk about the importance of a side character, right? So the side character is somebody that's there to help move along the storyline, right? So they have their own situation that's pretty much going on. It's not as important as the main storyline, but it eventually catches up to what's going on to the main storyline and it all eventually comes together. So if you look at Zatima, and listen, I know that Zatima and Sisters are supposed to be separate. You're not supposed to look at them as one. But I feel like it's hard to do that when you have Zach and Fatima from Sisters on this show. And then also we now have Preston who is on the show as well. It's like how can you not kind of put them together? And then also when you consider the fact that Sisters and Zatima are airing at the same time. So if you go and look at Zatima, we have Connie, we have Nathan, we have Tony, we have Belinda, we have Jeremiah, we have Bryce, we have Angela, we have Preston. We have all of these side characters, right? And the good thing about majority of the side characters, so if we go to Connie, Nathan, Tony, Jeremiah, Belinda, they are all pretty much connected to each other, right? So if something that's happening with one of them is going to eventually lead to the other ones, and then they're all going to come together, and the storyline is going to make sense amongst that group. And because that storyline is going to end up festering and becoming bigger, it's going to force a person like Fatima or force a person like Zach to get involved, and it just creates an overall storyline. And a good example of this would be Connie having to deal with Gladys's life insurance policy. So Gladys basically made it a situation where she's going to be responsible for distributing money out to Zach and to Jeremiah. So in this situation, she's kind of forced to have to get either Fatima or Zach involved. She ended up getting Fatima involved. And she went and she spoke to Fatima. And then afterwards, she ended up speaking to Jeremiah, which in turn caused Jeremiah to come up to the parking garage looking for the money. And he eventually ended up attacking Fatima. And of course, this caused Zach to want to kill his brother. All right, so let's look at this. So Connie is connected to Jeremiah. She's connected to Tony. She's connected to Nathan. She's also connected to Zach. And if we look at Nathan, Nathan is connected to Belinda. If we look at Zach, of course, he's connected to Fatima. If we look at Fatima, she's connected to Belinda. It's like you see how everybody is pretty much connected to each other. So when the side characters have a story going on, it eventually reaches the main characters, and then they have one cohesive storyline. It all pretty much comes together. Opposed to when we look at more recent Page, they are just there specifically just for comedic relief. Like they're not there to contribute to the storyline this season. They're just there just to be funny, and that doesn't add anything to the story. And speaking of the story, I feel like the storylines this season have been kind of weak. So if we look at Sabrina, Rich, and her trying to get her groove back, what has really came out of that? So like I said in the beginning, it was kind of like explosive, like, oh my God, Penelope is like all up in her face and saying this and saying that. But what has really happened since then? So Penelope, she came to the bank, she apologized, for everything that happened. And then she told Rich that, you know what, I'm not really feeling this. And then she went to this bar. She started looking at all these guys. And then Rich got jealous. And she was just like, you know what, I'm going to do me. And then Rich just walked off. And then she went to have this one night stand that didn't really go anywhere because old boy couldn't get his dick hard. So it was just kind of like, I guess. As far as Danny and Tony, I'm glad that Danny was able to get the settlement money, but as far as the situation with Tony, with him being on the couch, not really trying to do anything, trying to like figure things out, and she's just complaining episode after episode after episode, that is something that is really getting old. And then, of course, this contributes to the fact that everything is happening within such a short period, so it just feels like this has just been going on and on and on, when in actuality, it's only been a couple of days. And because it's only been a couple of days, it's just like, damn, how many times are you going to have this conversation? Like, are you speaking to this man like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times out of the day, telling him that he needs to get up and do something? It just becomes old. As far as Andy and Dr. Vaughn, I do not really know when the connection occurred between these two. Like, to me, I just felt like it was just kind of put in our face. Now, I get that we needed Dr. Vaughn to be there in order to get information about Dr. Cruz. I understand why he is present, but when it comes to this love storyline that they're trying to do, I don't really get it because it's a conflict of interest. Like, how can Andy bring a case against Dr. Cruz if she's currently dating the person that's pretty much going to be her star witness in the situation? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And something else that doesn't make sense to me, well, maybe I wouldn't say it doesn't make sense to me, but something that I wish would change is when it comes to Zach and Fatima. I personally think that Zach and Fatima should only be on Zatima, opposed to being on both Sisters and Zatima. And the reason why I say this is because I feel like when it comes to Zach and Fatima, and this is mostly Zach, I feel like the storyline that he has with other characters is much bigger than everybody else's individual storyline. I think it's very clear that Tyler and his people, they love Zach, they love Fatima, and you can see that on the show. And so I feel like if they were not on the show, other characters such as Danny and Sabrina, I feel like they would have better storylines, they would thrive more, and they would contribute more to the overall storyline of the show. And I personally think that this will be the perfect time to actually phase them off of the show, because Karen no longer has to deal with Zach, because when it comes to the baby, unfortunately she did lose the baby, and so that storyline is over. And then when we look at Andy and Fatima, it's becoming quite clear that Fatima, she has grown to a point that she wants to do more, right? So when it comes to being a paralegal, it's cool, it's fine, but she wants to do more, and she will not be able to do that as a paralegal, and of course not under Andy's thumb, because Andy, let me tell you something, Andy has her foot on Fatima's neck. I know a lot of you are saying that she's jealous, but I don't think it's jealousy. I think it's one of those situations where it's like, look, I have this big case that I'm trying to do. I already have a lot of hurdles I have to get through, and the last thing I need is for the person that's supposed to be assisting me doing all of these side deals and not helping me get this done. Like, this is something that's very important. So I do not think that it's jealousy. Like I said, I just think it's a situation where it's like, Fatima, you are fucking up because you're trying to do your own shit, and it's fucking up what I'm trying to do right now. So I need you to focus and realize like what's at hand here, and the fact that this little side thing that you're doing is really not something that's going to help out in the long run, because you're not a lawyer, so there really isn't much that you can do. Yeah, you have Hayden over here. He's kind of helping you out a little bit because he's a fanboy and he just wants to be in front of the players, but overall, you are not a lawyer, so there's really not much you can do. So therefore, you should take a back seat and allow people who are actually lawyers to handle things. So the question becomes, how long is Fatima going to sit in the back seat while others do things that she wants to do? And so to me, I feel like this would be a good time for her to be like, you know what, Andy, I appreciate everything that you have done for me. I appreciate everything that I've learned at this law office, but you know what? I want to do bigger things. I want to do better things. And I do not feel like I'm going to be able to do it here. So here's my resignation. You know what? I'm going to quit, but I don't want that to take away from our friendship. And not only is that going to eliminate that storyline, but it's also going to eliminate this weird parallel universe that Sisters and Zatima are in. Because if you watch Zatima, you know that, of course, Fatima, she still works at the office. So it's like she goes to the office, but we're supposed to pretend as if Andy is not there. And then also, when it comes to Angela, she works in the office too, right? She works in the building. But when we're on Sisters, we're supposed to pretend as if Angela's not there as well. And so it would eliminate like this super weird parallel universe. And it will also allow people to be like, okay, this is Sisters. This is what's going on with Sisters. Now this is Zatima. This is what's going on with Zatima. There won't be anyone trying to like mix them up or try to figure out any timeline because they will be separate entities. I also want to talk about the writing on this show. So I'm not sure if you all watched Beauty and Black. I'm not sure if you all watched All the Queensmen. But if you watch those shows, you will see that the writing style is so much different on those shows compared to this one. Like, you can tell that there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of effort into those shows when it comes to the dialogue. Like, it is really good. It has really good pacing, really good actors. It's like it's really good on those shows. But when it comes to Sisters, it's like it's kind of like bottom of the barrel, bottom tier, basic, predictable writing. And I feel like that is something that's really holding the show back, at least when it comes to this season. Because it's like things are so predictable. Like, they are really so predictable, in my opinion. And a good example of being predictable is when it comes to Karen and Zach. Let's keep it real, y'all. We all knew that Karen was not going to have Zach's baby. As unfortunate as that scene was, we knew that that wasn't going to happen. Because you got to think about it for a second. Zach, he has a kid already, but also Fatima is pregnant as well. So we have Sisters and we also have Zatima, and then we have a situation where he has a baby with Karen as well. How is that necessarily going to work without being repetitive? Because think about it. If we have a situation where Karen actually has Zach's baby, we have to deal with that on Sisters, and then also when we go over to Fatima, we're going to have to deal with them having a storyline with the baby plus Fatima's baby. And so it would become too repetitive, so it wouldn't make any sense. So of course I knew that that wasn't going to happen. And then also when you look at this situation with Fatima and Chaz, like you can tell from the very beginning that Chaz wanted to fuck Fatima, right? I know she was looking at it as, oh my god, this basketball player wants to work with me, but it's like, no, he wants to fuck you. He wants some pussy. Like, it's not a situation of him really like you like that. And so now that we see that he's FaceTiming her and he pops up at the house on the next episode from what we saw in the trailer, and then him and Zach, it looks like they're getting ready to get into a fight and all that stuff. It's like, you could have predicted this from the beginning because it was clear that he just wanted to be in a relationship with her. And then even when he FaceTime her, she's like, I'm having breakfast with my fiance. He's like, that little shit that you got on your finger, it's like you can tell that this was going to happen from the beginning. Like, I mean, yeah, it's cool to see, it's drama and whatnot, but overall predictability, it's like we already knew that this was going to happen. And so those are my thoughts on this season so far. I do apologize that I did not do a full review of Sisters last week. And also, unfortunately, I'm not going to do a full review of Sisters this week. So I do apologize about that. But I do feel like, me just doing like this state of Sisters in which I'm just talking about the season of Raw. And then I drop points as far as like what happened on the most recent episode. Of course, when it comes to Chaz and Fatima. Of course, when it comes to Andy and Fatima. I feel like that actually works itself out in a way. But when it comes to this season, y'all, I just expected so much more. I just thought that it was going to be so much better, not because I'm reviewing the show, but because I'm watching it as somebody who is just interested in seeing what's going on. And when I watch a show like Beauty and Black, that's also a Tyler Perry production, and I see how well he did that show, then I come back to this one, it's like, what is this? Like, why is it that you're able to make this show over here so great? But then when it comes to this show, it's just bottom of the barrel, just okay, super predictable, and nothing is really happening. And then it's only taking place over the course of what, like a week? I am hopeful that the second half of the season is going to be much better. I can see that they are trying to connect the pieces and put everything together for this mid-season finale. But going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, when it comes to the storylines, it just doesn't. There really isn't much that has happened during this season. So when it comes to just trying to connect it together, it's like, yeah, that's cool, but what exactly are you really connecting? And then even when we look at Karen's situation where she goes missing, it's like, while that is unfortunate that that's happening, we've already saw this situation play out on Insecure. So Issa Rae show Insecure that was on HBO Max. We've already saw this, so it's not really anything, in my opinion, to look forward to because it's something that's pretty much already been done. But like I said, I am hopeful, I'm optimistic, and I am going to continue to review the show. I know I've been shitting on it this entire video, but I am going to continue to review it because I just want the second half to be much better and to prove me wrong. But that is everything I have. I do appreciate you all watching. If you could, please like, comment, share, subscribe. That would be great. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.